Hey guys, Eckhart Slaughter here. Hello and welcome to the very first episode of a brand new series. As you guys know, I love doing versus matchups, taking one thing from the Star Wars galaxy and putting it against something else. Well, today we're doing that, but on a galactic scale. The idea for this matchup came from a user by the name of Master Chief, nice name, of course, who suggested that we put the Flood from Halo against the Star Wars galaxy. And you know what, I thought that would be a really fun thing to do, and it's the first of this new series, where we will be looking at versus matchups on a greater scale. The next episode I have planned is looking at whether the Empire and the forces they amassed during the Battle of Endor could invade the planet of Reach from the Halo series. This series is a lot more complex than the standard Who Would Win episodes, so I'm only going to continue it if you guys like it. So let's aim to get this episode at 2,000 likes, just so I know that it's worth continuing. Alright, so let's get started with the matchup, and the way I'm going to do it is this. I'll go over some basic rules, take a close look at each faction, and then have the actual battle. So today, as I mentioned, we're looking at the Flood versus the Galactic Empire. Specifically, we're going to take the Galactic Empire as it existed right before the Battle of Endor. However, in this scenario, the Rebel Alliance won't be a major threat, and they're kind of just off on a vacation or something. The Empire gets full use of all of its resources, including Emperor Palpatine, Darth Vader, the Death Star 2, and any other super weapons that they may have under construction. The Flood infection starts on an unremarkable world in the unknown regions. We're talking a planet that is neither controlled by the Empire or by the Chiss Ascendancy or any other major faction. However, the planet is, at the very least, civilized, and it does have organic life forms on it. Finally, the Flood starts at its very basic stage, with only a few spores and no accumulated biomass. So let's get some basic info about these two factions, and we'll start with the Flood. The Flood are a nasty, disgusting, very, very dangerous species. They are singular-minded, with the sole goal of infecting hosts to achieve more biomass. In early stages, the Flood infects organic species by taking over their nervous systems. You do that through small spores. Now, I'm just trying to give a basic Reader's Digest version of how the Flood operates, but basically once they take over a body, their main goal becomes to hijack and actually infect other organisms. The problem when fighting the Flood is that once they've started to infect small populations, the outbreak just increases very dramatically, and once it starts, it's very difficult to stop. The interesting thing about the Flood is that as they infect more organisms, they become more intelligent and they kind of contribute to this singular sentient mind. At early stage, the Flood really has no grand strategy. They just attack sentient life forms and try to achieve more biomass. However, after a sufficient level of biomass has been collected, they form what's called a Proto Gravemind. And I mean, a Proto Gravemind doesn't even require that many infected bodies. We're talking about 100 to a few thousand, nothing more than that. The Proto Gravemind itself is able to do more advanced functions than a basic Flood form. It can pilot ships, for example, and develop a basic strategy. This is notable because a Proto Gravemind can actually be used to escape planets and bring the Flood to other parts of the galaxy. That is, of course, through the piloting of a spaceship. The next stage after a Proto Gravemind is a Gravemind itself, and this is a hyper-intelligent entity which will control the Flood on a macro level, providing grand strategy and actually very intelligent tactics. In Halo 3, we see just how dangerous and intelligent a single Gravemind is. They're a very serious foe, and they're not to be taken lightly. However, the Flood also has a further stage, and that's the Keymind. A Keymind is formed once the Flood have taken over all life on a single planet. A Keymind is extraordinarily intelligent, allegedly even more so than even the most advanced Forerunner AI. So basically the main takeaways are this. The Flood are an extremely dangerous enemy. A single spore can lead to a very large outbreak, as is revealed in Halo 3. And the more biomass accumulated by the species, the more intelligent they get. Let's now talk about the Star Wars universe and the Empire as it existed around the time of Return of the Jedi. The galaxy was home to millions of species comprising in total over 100 quadrillion individuals. In total, there were hundreds of millions, if not billions, of inhabited planets. The main government during Return of the Jedi, of course, was the Galactic Empire. The Empire itself was comprised of trillions of individuals and had a direct presence on about 100 million worlds. The Empire would have had a very powerful navy with millions of ships, including, most likely, 100 or more super star destroyers or other dreadnoughts. The Galactic Empire used many super weapons, most notably at this time would have been the Death Star 2, which could destroy a planet in a single shot. Hyperspace technology in the Star Wars universe is very impressive, and you could cross the galaxy in days to weeks. The other notable feature of the Galactic Empire at this time would have been Force users, and there were two main ones, of course, and that would be Darth Vader and Emperor Palpatine. Palpatine was especially advanced and could see things happening on a macro level far before they had actually occurred. However, there are limits to this, and the Force never usually tells the future with real clarity. It usually gives you hints, but doesn't tell you exact details. The Star Wars galaxy has actually fought extra galactic invaders before, probably most notably the Yuzang Vong. They weren't fought off by the Empire, but rather the New Republic, who was arguably less powerful and less militarized. I'm not going to spend any more time actually detailing the power of the Empire here, because I think we can do so as we look at the actual matchup itself. So, a very small flood infestation happens at the edge of the Star Wars galaxy. Is the Empire able to eradicate the flood? I think throughout this I'm going to compare the Empire situation with that of the Forerunners, because we know that the Forerunners, in a very advanced, very ancient race in the Halo universe, fought the flood but were not able to win, at least without killing their own species. The first problem for the Empire is that their galaxy is bigger. They have more planets, more people, but they have less control of individual systems. While the core worlds would have seen pretty heavy Imperial oversight, when you get to the Outer Rim and especially the unknown regions, Imperial oversight would have been, at most times at least, pretty minimal. This is a problem because it means initial response to the infection will be very, very slow. I truly think this will be a pretty big problem for the Empire. I mean, we see with the Forerunner, who had a pretty tight grip on most of their planets, still couldn't stop flood infestations. This is a problem made worse by the fact that the galaxy just has so many living beings, i.e. so many potential flood hosts. Another problem for the Star Wars universe is that hyperspace travel, particularly to and from outpost-like planets, is very common, and it's not really very highly regulated. I mean, even a backwater planet like Tatooine often has ships coming and going. That means the initial flood infestation will spread very quickly. The flood doesn't need to create a Gravemind or a Proto Gravemind to leave the planet. All it needs to do is infect someone who's leaving on a shuttle or going to somewhere else in the galaxy. Speaking of technology, it seems like the Empire uses less advanced warships and capital ships than the Forerunner Empire. I mean, the Mantle's approach, which was a very impressive warship even by Forerunner standards, even outclasses the Death Star in size. But still, even with this very advanced technology, the Forerunner were unable to stop the flood by conventional means. I mean, they couldn't bomb the flood out of existence, they couldn't destroy population centers fast enough, and really, while they could take down individual flood infestations, there were always more floods somewhere else. Another technological disadvantage I see for the Star Wars universe is a lack of artificial intelligence. I mean, of course droids and other robots do have some form of AI, but it's not typically controlling military or civilian processes. As a flood infection grows, it becomes increasingly more difficult to manage. This is especially true once hyper-intelligent Gravemind or key worlds begin forming. I mean, don't get me wrong, the Empire did have its fair share of very impressive military minds. I mean, look at, for example, Admiral Thrawn. But still, a sentient being cannot compete with a life form that has the intelligence and the thought of billions of composed persons. Especially where the flood works from a single mind. I mean, they're very well coordinated, they have no selfishness or anything like that. Their only goal is to further propagate their species. In the later stages of the Flood Forerunner War, it was really only very advanced AI which allowed the Forerunner to at least survive. If you want to learn more about that, feel free to read the Halo 3 terminals. It gives kind of a good overview of what the Forerunner were facing. So, here's what I think would likely happen. The flood infects some planet in the unknown region. For a while, it goes unnoticed, but pretty soon the flood have infected many people on this planet. The Empire isn't able to respond quickly because they probably aren't monitoring that sector of the galaxy. While this is happening, the flood have also, if they haven't already formed a Proto Gravemind, infected travelers going to other planets. Now we have flood forms forming on hundreds, if not thousands of worlds. Many of these worlds will develop Graveminds, some even key minds. By now the Empire will certainly know that something is up. However, the flood will now be on many, many planets. They've probably infected trillions of people, and they probably now have a very, very smart central mind. At this point, the flood is basically unstoppable. They're so diffused throughout the galaxy that the only way to actually end the species and end the invasion would be to kill every flood form. However, just because of the sheer size of the Star Wars galaxy, the sheer number of individuals that will be infected by this point, that's pretty much impossible. Also by this point, the flood intelligence will be very, very advanced, and it will be able to coordinate all its forces and strategically attack the Empire to a degree just never seen before in the Star Wars universe. I really don't feel confident for the Empire here. I mean, there's really only one way they can win. That's if Palpatine or Vader somehow senses the initial infection and can get a fleet over the planet to bombard it out of existence before it can spread further. But I mean, I'm not sure if the Force will actually give them that level of clarity to see into the future and see the initial infection. I mean, even in the Forerunner universe, they identified that the Flood had entered the galaxy, but they didn't identify it as a threat. That's a problem that could also happen with the Star Wars universe. The thing is this, in the Halo universe, no species was ever able to stop a full-scale Flood infestation. I mean, even the Forerunner, who in my mind are a lot more powerful than the Galactic Empire, had to use non-conventional means, i.e. the Halo rings, to kill themselves and basically starve the Flood of their food. Ancient humans almost did develop a cure for the Flood, but based on how many sentient beings there are in the Star Wars universe and how quickly hyperspace works, I don't think the Empire is going to have time to do so. I think it's pretty clear that the Empire loses in this scenario. The Star Wars galaxy is just too big and too populated for them to monitor every system. Once the infestation starts, I really do think that it will spread extremely quickly. And because the galaxy doesn't make use of intelligent AI, I think that they will be overwhelmed by the intelligence of the Flood central mind. So I give this battle to the Flood 9.5 times out of 10. I mean, they are just such an impressive force, and the Forerunner wasn't able to stop them. I don't think that the Star Wars universe will be able to either. The only chance that the Empire has is if somehow Palpatine or Vader can see the infestation happening, destroy the planet quickly. Perhaps other factions within the Star Wars universe could stop the infestation. I mean, we saw that the Celestials may have enacted some sort of hyperspace barrier to stop the Nal in ancient Star Wars history. Perhaps they could do something similar. Maybe an interesting idea for a video in the future. Anyways, thank you so much for watching, guys. I put a poll right here in the upper right hand corner. Let me know who you think would win this matchup, the Flood or the Galactic Empire. Also, as always, if you have suggestions for future videos, put them down in the comments, and make sure that you give this video a like so that I know you liked it, and that I can do the Halo Reach versus the Empire scenario that I mentioned at the beginning. Anyways, thank you again for watching, guys. As always, may the Force be with you.